Okay. Hey, everybody. Sorry. JuliAnne and I were just talking in the green room, having a good time. I was like, oh, yeah, we need to go live. Thank you so much. Back in So, welcome everybody. I'm just calling it Conversations with Friends because we're going to be talking to survivors. We're going to be talking to significant others, people who were caregivers, and I've got like a stray hair here, and people who are stepping up and doing things for women who are going through their journey with breast cancer since they've been diagnosed. So, on our first real Conversations with Friends, I'm so excited. I've got my dear friend JuliAnne Murphy with me this morning, who is also a fellow breast cancer survivor. And JuliAnne, you're at 4 years now too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got diagnosed right around the same time.
Yes.
So yeah, how unbelievably odd is that? I mean, it's
not incredibly odd.
Because we just background for people who don't know, a lot of people in our group know how JuliAnne and I met. I used to work with JuliAnne. She was my boss at Forest City, and we worked for the Stapleton redevelopment project here in the Denver metro area. And just amazing person to work with. And I learned so much about marketing. And we, sort of went our separate ways as you do in life. And then you were living out of the country when you got your diagnosis.
Correct. Yeah, we were living in Costa Rica. I had, as you recall, in, 2008 or so, I took a job in Panama for several years. I was there right at 8 years. And then I moved over to Costa Rica for a consulting gig. And then started a business there. Mm-hmm. And so this would have been September 2016. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to believe it's been 4 years.
In some ways it seems really condensed, and in other ways it seems like a lifetime. I don't know if that's your experience.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And, last weekend when I hit the 12th was the day I got my diagnosis. I got that phone call. It was kind of not really, I didn't know how to feel. It was weird. Like, the first year it really hit me hard. Mm-hmm. And then the second and third year I was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. I'm moving forward. I'm doing this. But this year it was different. It was hard to explain.
Yeah, well, and your story was a little bit different than mine, mm-hmm. and then I had a second reoccurrence, and you haven't done that. So this year for me is, I guess the way I would look at it was I was actually in the throes mm-hmm. of cancer treatment or active disease for almost 3 years, mm-hmm. and I had gaps in between being, symptom free for some time, for about 11 months, and then had a reoccurrence. Last October was when they discovered it. Mm-hmm. So that kind of plays in. So like you, I saw a post that you did, and I was like, and weird too, if you think about it, because you said it was the 12th, right?
Uh-huh.
So that week, if you think about it, for those of us that are of a certain age, mm-hmm. remember clearly September 11th.
Yeah.
And then September 12th. So that whole week for me is weird.
Yeah.
Energetically and emotionally. And when I thought about it this week, and I think it was around the time you posted, I was like, wow, yeah. It's not like you have an alarm clock, but you go, oh, it's September. Oh, and it's 9/11. And anyway.
Yeah.
So like you, I felt mixed and there's some joy, clearly, a lot of joy mm-hmm. that I am where I am. And then there's still a lot of sadness, because I think a big piece of traversing this journey is there's pockets and pieces of grief that show up at different points when you kind of think you should be over it.
Yeah. I mean? Yeah. And that's one thing, you and I have talked about this extensively with each other. The mental aspect of it is my journey, every woman's journey is different. Mine was not as difficult as yours. Yours is, and we're going to, get into that a little bit if you don't mind sharing that.
Of course. Yeah, happy to.
The mental aspect for me was probably the hardest. We were talking about this in the green room before we started. I have an incredibly high tolerance for pain. I just am like, okay, well, this is my normal. This is how I'm supposed to be feeling.
Right.
Which was not the case. And that's why I'm so grateful that I finally had the, second reconstructive surgery back in July. Mm-hmm. But I think for me, what I struggled with is the survivor guilt. and that my journey wasn't as difficult as yours or a couple of other women that I know, and who came very, very close to losing their battle, with this. And I think that's what I've struggled with is, why me? Why was my journey less difficult than someone like my dear friend JuliAnne?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. Survivor guilt, we can talk about, as you know, for days, and it looks different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear you. I've often wondered, even with it's funny because yes, it was very bad in parts. And yes, I almost lost my life and then have come out of it and then had the recurrence, and we'll get into all that stuff. And yet it's weird. You get to a point coming out of all that, and I don't know if this has been your experience, but you coming out of this reoccurrence, and then I had the double mastectomy, and so now I've been disease-free. And in fact, my last appointment, my oncologist said to the nurse, "This woman is a true miracle," pointing to me. She was metastatic, terminal, and 2 years later, she's totally in remission. He said, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
Anyway, the emotional side of it, I think, for all of us, no matter what our journey has been, cancer in all its many forms, and I learned so much through my journey. I kind of thought there was like 3 kinds of breast cancer, and you went in and had as we all know now, every situation is different. Every medicine treatment is different. Every symptomology is treatment. And so it takes over your entire life in such a way, and kind of like what's a good way to put it? It's almost like a scattershot approach. It comes in, it just blasts everything in your life. And then you're kind of standing among the rubble if you make it out of it. And thank goodness more and more of us are. And you're like, it's kind of a PTSD feeling like, well, now what am I supposed to do? Treatment in whatever form takes over for months or for years or whatever it is. And that absorbs so much of your time, energy, mental focus, and then it's over. And that's why what you're doing here is so important, to keep on having the conversations, because I still have moments where I'll be standing at the kitchen sink washing dishes, and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
Look, that kind of thing. Do you ever have that?
I do sometimes. I feel like there's part of me that I'm like, oh, I should be so much further along.
Right.
With the Boob report.
Yeah.
I should have this, I should already be nationwide. But there were things that I had to go through and experience and accept, that I had gone through this. And I think there was, oddly enough, it was a gentleman that I was talking to, and he lost his wife to a different type of cancer, not breast cancer. And he was telling me, he said, you have to look at it as a trauma. You absolutely went through a trauma. There was a trauma to your psyche, to your body, to your femininity. That's how you have to look at it. And for some women, it takes quite a while to get over that.
And you didn't really mention this, but it's true. And the trauma to our bodies, yes, the femininity as a global being, but the trauma I can't even tell you how many people touch my breasts, my chest, my stomach, my abdomen. Honestly, you get to a point where you just feel like constantly violated, but you get used to it. By the way, I'm barricaded in my office. If you hear a little vacuum noise in the back, the girls are doing it, and I was like, naturally, it's falling on the same time, so
it's okay. We'll probably hear my dogs bark here. It's all good. It's real. It's real life.
Yeah, this is true life. The true life at home during COVID.
Exactly. Yeah, it is just you really don't know, and there's no right or wrong way to go.
No,
absolutely not. There is absolutely no right or wrong way to do it. But I think for me, and I know that you're very organized, and I'm a planner. I literally plan out years in advance stuff, and that works my husband's last nerve, because he's he's a spur of the moment kind of guy, but I've gotten better. But I know that this just, when I got that diagnosis and started going and seeing the surgeons and this and that, and they're like, okay, so we need to map out, you need to get the MRI. We need to, do this test, we need to do that. We need to, get the surgery scheduled. Well, I immediately, broke out my day planner and my calendar. We can't do it here, here, and here. And this isn't going to work. My daughter has this and my son has this. And he literally my surgeon reached across the table, took my calendar away from me and said, I don't give a shit.
Right.
This is about you.
Yeah.
This is about you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's also a huge change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because in our culture, we're used to being, especially those of us that are type A, which you and I both are, we're used to having everything organized and a plan and our lives, working towards goals and big visions. And then this just obliterates all of that.
Yeah. 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 It's, it is just, it rocked me to my core because I like things, to be
orderly.
I was like,
laughing after the fact because at the time it's not funny at all.
No, it's
nothing is funny, and it's just again the bewilderment, the PTSD of like having a bomb explode in the entire world, and yet, and you can see why so many women and men, clearly not many with breast cancer men, but there are some. Yeah, it just it's so hard to explain, but I love that you bring up the, that we can laugh about it now. The, you mentioned I think on one of your posts in response comments to something that I did about laughter. And you said you watched a lot of comedies and things like that. Yeah. I did too. I tried to watch, uplifting kind of fun, romantic comedies and things. And, I have, my husband, he's got a very sort of twisted sense of humor, which my daughter inherited naturally. And it was funny because we would just kind of say things, we got to a point where we would just kind of joke about things. Right. And I remember my husband was making dinner one night and he called my daughter and I to the table. He said, dinner's ready. Well, neither one of us really moved right away. And he was like, Shyla, come, have dinner. And she goes, well, Michelle's not getting up. And I was like, well, Michelle has cancer. Michelle can do whatever the F she wants.
He was like, oh my God, really? How long are you going to play this card? And I go, as long as
it works.
Yeah. And it's hilarious because she hates the color pink. She is not like it. And she was teasing me one day. She was like, really? You had to get the cancer? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Next time I'll try and do better. Yeah. It was things like that kept us going. But not everybody is like that. Not everybody can do that. Case in point, when we eventually told my son, because he was at college, my husband and my daughter had time for it to kind of sink in. And so we were telling my son, we kind of made a little joke, and the look on my son's face and the tears in his eyes were like, okay, too soon. Right. Okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out your process and how you can handle it. And when you're ready to laugh or cry or scream or yell or whatever it is you need to do.
And I think it's worth mentioning that while humor is helpful, that it is also incredibly normal. And in fact, it would be abnormal not to have moments and days and weeks and even months of depression as you're grieving the loss of your life before the process of cancer and cancer treatment, and then your life after, if that's, or ongoing, whatever your story looks like. I have suffered a lot with that. And my oncologist recommended at some point, said they have a social worker in their office, and they said every visit I would ever go, would you like to speak to the social worker? At first I was like, why would I need to speak to a social worker? But with time I was like, yes, I would. And over time, I really needed to see a therapist to work through a lot of that.
Yeah.
This is another leg of support for the process.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm very open about the breakdown I had, at my physical therapy appointment. And my physical therapist was the one that said, you need to talk to somebody because you literally have not accepted the fact that you had cancer. Right. And she goes, until you do that, you're just running in circles. You're like on this little, hamster wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And once I did, I realized I've probably suffered with some form of depression my entire life. I mean, it does run in my family, but this was the catalyst that really made me realize that I do need to talk to somebody about it. It's not something that I can just, I'm having a little bad day.
Yeah.
It can be debilitating sometimes.
It can.
I'm sure that you felt this too. There were days where it took everything I had to get out of bed.
Well, there's many days I didn't get out of bed, to be honest. Yeah, especially during treatment, because it's physically, but the emotional, the mental toll, and again, the whole system of having your entire world just decimated it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot. And I think that this is why what we're doing is so important, is women need to understand that it is okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It is absolutely okay with that. And it's if you have a support system, if you have someone you can talk to, that's awesome. I mean, we're very blessed with an amazing support system. Not every woman has that.
That's true.
So that's why it was important to me to start this group. Originally I just started it to keep my friends and family updated.
Right.
A sense of humor came up with the Boob Report.
With a name.
I know. It's when I did my interview for 9 News here locally in Denver, it was a male-female, anchor team for the 4 o'clock news. And the guy really wanted to interview me, but he was like, I just don't know how it'll sound me saying the Boob Report.
Yeah.
Exactly. Fantastic. Yeah. He goes, but we're gonna have my colleague here interview you. It's like, okay, it's fine. It's but I want women to just be okay with not being okay about things. That's what I think. I think that's what the message I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, no, and you're doing an excellent job. I think you're doing an amazing job. I really laud you for everything. This being part of your post-cancer journey is to really help others that are traversing the same. It's, I think the more the better.
Yeah. Well, and I'm always looking for ways to improve. With the website, we're going to have links to local support groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you, did you ever go to any support groups when you were through yours?
Yeah, I did. So I came back to Arkansas at one point. There was nothing in Costa Rica. We lived on the coast, 4 hours from the city. There was nothing there at all. So this would have been in year 2 and 3 for me of my journey. It was about 3.5 years in total. My hospital offered a once a month group in person for women going through breast cancer. I found it extremely helpful. And to me, going to that, I felt such a physical relief, even just walking in the door and hearing other stories. And it wasn't even that we talked about big stuff. It was just that we were all in the same place. Yeah. And it was like a different language. Yeah. Because they knew about the MRI and then, and the PETs and the whatever, all the acronyms that you get to know. Mm-hmm. And the side effects and what was your experience with this and did your stitches do this? And it just, I can feel it in my body now. It kind of makes you want to cry, but it literally is just that safe space to have somebody else that totally gets it. And you don't even have to say a bunch of words. Just to sit with them and listen is like, oh, it's like water to the soul.
Right. Yeah. I was the opposite. I didn't go to any support groups and I didn't feel comfortable with it. Okay. But I would watch, maybe someone was doing a Facebook Live. I had a couple of friends that would talk about things. I followed them through Facebook. I talked to a couple of different people on the phone. I had an amazing nurse navigator that I worked with that I really felt comfortable with, but I really didn't start going to support groups or reaching out until this last year. Okay. So, and it was a different experience for me. So that's why I wanted to start doing this conversations with friends, because I think there are a lot of women out there that don't feel comfortable going to a support group. But if they have something like this where they can watch you and I and we're talking, and you and I are coming from 2 different places.
Totally. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
And I think that's going to be very helpful for them, just to be able to watch this and say, okay, yeah, I'm not one of those people that can go to a support group, but I'll sit and watch something like this because I'm actually getting my questions answered.
Yeah.
Just watching something like this.
Yeah. And to point out, like you now, so that first year and a half, I didn't have even access to a group because I was living abroad. And I'm not sure I would have been open to it even if I had, because it sounds similar in the fact, my experience that at the beginning, I felt so shell-shocked through the whole thing, and the urgency and the form of cancer that I had was an aggressive form. And so they wanted to go right in and do all this crazy stuff. And I was like, so it took me months, and I would say even maybe the first year, of feeling like I just needed to I felt like I needed to kind of suck in and get all my, try to control the little things that I could to make sense of it. Because again, the emotional side of it, it's just so devastating that it took me some time. So it wasn't like I had access right away and I ran straight in. As you know, from kind of our prior corporate experience together, I tend to be pretty private. Now, post-cancer, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But I tended before to be pretty private about my personal affairs. And this pretty much took all that away, which was another big kind of like, wait a minute. So.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to sneeze a couple times. My allergies are off the charts with all the smoke, from the fire.
Right.
Sending love and prayers to everyone on the West Coast. But no, I agree with you. I'm pretty much an open book, but people know my story, they know me and everything. But when I was first diagnosed, I kept it quiet for a while. I mean, I certainly didn't share it with my clients.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, I kept it quiet. I didn't put it on my personal page. I wanted it to be something that was just mine because I wasn't quite ready to share it yet.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely normal. There are some women, they make the announcement, I've got breast cancer, this is what's happening, and that's fantastic. They embrace it, that's how they deal with it.
Yeah.
Again, why I want this to be where women can see this and know that whatever they do that they're comfortable with, that's for them. That's good for them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Agreed.
So, so what are you doing now? What I know you've kind of put your foot in different things of what you're doing with your recovery and how you're moving forward and giving back and things like that.
Yeah. So the final kind of piece of my breast cancer journey was a double mastectomy this past December. And so it took me several months to kind of get back on my feet, get to normal energy and things like that. And then of course, COVID hit, which I was like, are you serious? I kind of took it personally. Like I was alone for all these months and now I can't go out again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've turned really I guess what I would say is my overall philosophy post-cancer, and I call it my post-cancer life, is and I feel like I always had a heart for people, but that has even increased tenfold. So there are a number of ways now that I really focus in terms of what I'm doing generally day to day. I am working on, this has been a little bit slow lately, but I'm working on and releasing little by little a video series focused on different topics. It can be some interviews, like you're one of them. That's the one I'm editing right now. And other professionals about different topics related to breast cancer treatment or a breast cancer journey, or interview with a professional about a topic that I didn't know anything about, but I learned about during my breast cancer journey, and sharing those. That's one thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which I love. It's really fun to hear other people's stories just like yours. So that'll be upcoming. So I'll post that on the Boob report once that one's done. I'm also now working with seniors, and I'm doing this actually as a service and a business. This is relatively new. And I'm actually, my tagline for that is kind of helping you stay connected. And so I'm actually helping seniors with technology issues.
Oh.
And that's a new chapter of my kind of serving others, because then that was actually born out of this, my kind of overall every day, I get up and I say, what can I do today to make, because as I came out of, especially almost losing my life and then the reoccurrence, I've had this feeling like I need to make my life mean something.
Yeah.
And so, as you know, I'll tell a very short story. The first time I was in remission or symptom-free or disease-free, what do they say?
Yeah.
I ran across the country with my husband, invested in a huge property on the coast of Maine, right on the water. And we did an Airbnb, like bed and breakfast. And then we were about to launch as a retreat center for women with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so excited, lots of heart, time, money. And literally the month before the retreat center piece was supposed to open, which was about a year ago, we discovered the reoccurrence. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big, like, honestly, kind of slap in the face in a way from an emotional standpoint for me, because I'd been so keen on, if I still have this life, which I do, thanks be to God, I'm going to make it worth something. I'm going to make it have meaning. And to me, that meaning means I'm going to be giving back to women with cancer. So in my mind, that was a pragmatic and a physical manifestation of doing that. I guess you could say the man upstairs had different ideas. So we decided, because my trusted medical team is back here in my home state of Arkansas, to come back and realize that with the surgery that needed to happen immediately, we couldn't stay and me try to run a bed and breakfast and a retreat center for months. No, it wasn't going to work. So we made the decision to close that. So a lot of that has transitioned into this. Not only I have an active blog that I do about going through cancer treatment. I did a lot of blogging during treatment. Those are all on my webpage at JuliAnneMurphy.com. I named that blog Unbridled Woman, because I felt like going through cancer, I suddenly was given a full license to just speak the truth, whatever my truth was. That's one thing cancer really helped me kind of take the bridle off and throw it away. And so that's one thing that I do in terms of giving back. And then this video series is another. This new seniors piece is another. And then finally, not related to cancer, but as you know, since we worked together in marketing many moons ago, well, it wasn't that many moons ago, but it seems like many moons ago, given that everything we've been through. I have another page, because one of my different legs of business, income producing, is a network marketing company. But because I was in corporate marketing for 22 years, I find, and I know you find this too, because this is part of your business, I find that especially solopreneurs and often small women entrepreneurs don't really understand marketing, and they don't know how to do it online. So I'm educating people, especially women, especially in network marketing, on how to do that with ease and with ethics. Yeah. Because the industry often has a lot of a bad taste in its mouth. So there's a lot of different arms of kind of my giving back, if you will. Yeah. But underlying all of it is that I came out of it going, what can I do if I'm here still on the planet? Why am I here? And what can I do to really, I've been given another chance. So what am I going to do with it? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, that's what the Boob Report is all about. My mission, my goal is to, we've got it going here in the Denver area. We haven't had like an official big launch. COVID kind of put a little
with a lot of things.
Kibosh on that thing. So we're doing a soft launch of the website next month, and then I'm just going to be adding to it and adding to it, and then I'm going to start reaching out to people. My goal is to have a Boob Report in every major city in the United States, so that women in Miami have local resources that they can reach out to, and it'll be the Boob Report Miami, and this and that. And I'm incredibly excited about that. It's an unusual business model, because obviously I can't have hospitals and doctors pay to be a part of this, because that wouldn't be
not the point, right?
So it's so we would have to have advertisers. And then the next, critical point of that is, and nothing against, a fried chicken franchise or something like that. I can't have them sponsoring a breast cancer. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I have to be very careful and make sure they're in alignment with what I'm trying to do, for women. So, not that I don't love fried chicken.
No. Listen, we all love a good KFC or whatever local. There's some good fried chicken here in Arkansas. But
yes. And I mean, I just, but I have to make sure it's companies that are working with women with breast cancer and things like that. So that business model has been something that's been a little bit slow to get going. But I do have some companies that want to reach out. I'm super excited. Next week, I'm talking with a woman who she owns lemongrass spa products.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome. Yes. And you sent me, if you remember, so this has been, gosh, it's been almost 2 years ago.
Last year.
Last year?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it was recovery after chemo. Yeah. You sent me a little care kit of her stuff. Oh my gosh, amazing products.
Oh, and it's all natural.
Love it. Yeah, loved it.
Her father, I met this woman, Heidi, years ago in workout. We were working in the same workout group. And she started this company like in the basement of her house in Bailey, Colorado. And now it is a national, international company.
Love it.
She lives in Florida now. And her father had cancer. And so she wanted to start giving back in different ways and using her products to, spread awareness about how, you should be using chemical-free products and things like that. And so she is doing something a little different this year for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm excited to talk about that with her next week. But companies like that is who I would align myself with.
Right. There's another gal I just read about, and I'll send it to you separately in our local newspaper. And I think she's in Oregon. She's young. She's in her 20s, and she's doing something similar post a pretty challenging experience. She's turned it into something else.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Yeah. That is one thing that we're going to be talking about. It's frightening to me how women are getting younger and younger that are being diagnosed. I can't wrap my head around it. I mean, I was 49 when I was diagnosed.
Well, yeah. And I was 40, so 46. Yeah.
So, and the funny thing is, I don't know if your doctor told you this. My surgeon told me that I had probably had my cancer anywhere from 5 to 10 years.
Mine said 2 to 10. And I don't know if that difference, I don't know that they can prove exactly, but they would say that in Petri, it would take, that long to grow. And I had an aggressive form. I don't remember exactly what your diagnosis was, but so I don't know. I don't know.
I had, the type of cancer I had was invasive lobular carcinoma. So it starts at the milk duct and works its way back in.
Backwards. Okay.
So I had 6 tumors in my left breast. So the fact I didn't have to do chemo or radiation is mind blowing.
A miracle.
But I tell you, with those 6 tumors, you could not feel them. So it wasn't like a normal lump. They were so fluid. And my surgeon told me that type of cancer is what they call the sneaky cancer, because it literally can progress to a state that sometimes by the time they find it, it's too late.
Too late. Yeah.
So
mine started as a tiny little, it was a centimeter. And I discovered it in a self-breast exam after I had a massage. My right breast just swelled up like 2 days later, like huge. And I was like, what's happening? Anyway, and that led to the whole process of discovering it. And then went through a year of treatment, was not successful. We thought it was, and then it wasn't. This was in Costa Rica. And then came back to the U.S. to have some tests done at a higher level. And I will say the system in Costa Rica and in many other countries, Costa Rica has excellent healthcare, but I didn't feel that some of the technology, in my opinion, was as advanced as what I could get back in the States. That was my experience. Many women have treatment there and they do great. But anyway, the treatment, the first treatment I did was alternative. It was actually out of Ecuador, but I was able to do it at home. Anyway, that was not successful. I came back to Arkansas, which surprisingly, because I'm from here, I came back because the hospital here is in the top 10 in the U.S. for breast cancer, which I had never known until I needed to. But had some more tests and so forth. Then at that point in March of 2018, they said, unfortunately, the cancer has spread to your lungs in 12 places and you are now terminal. And I was like, what? How is that even possible? I feel pretty good. I didn't feel great. I was sick a lot and I was very fatigued and felt like I had the flu all the time. But I mean, I was still functioning.
Yeah.
So we at that point packed up, closed our business, relocated back to the States. And by that time, within like 3 months of that, quitting the other process and coming back and getting the tumor in my tumors had multiplied and were taking up 1/3 of the territory of my right breast and coming through the skin.
Oh, wow. I remember that. I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Horrible. Bleeding, the whole thing. It was awful. I mean, I was like, is this like a science fiction movie? And is it happening to me? Anyway, it was really, so we came back to the States. That was several weeks. They wanted me to fly back like the next week to start chemo. And I was like, I can't do that. I have pets and a house and a business. And anyway, by the time we got back, which was only like 3 or 4 weeks, which was amazing, I was scheduled to start chemo. And literally the day of chemo starting, I was walking out the door to go to the hospital. My doctor called and said, we just found out about a clinical trial. It's very unusual for women with stage 4 that have not had chemo. You fit that category. Would you be interested? And I said, do you think I should be interested? And he said, I think you should look at it. And I said, okay. So that took another month because they have to preview you and all that stuff. I did get into the trial. And then they added that to the chemo regime that he had recommended. And that was like a 5-month process. And very simply, the first dose of the chemo and the immunotherapy, which was the clinical trial drug, almost killed me, essentially. My body went into sepsis and hospitalized for 8 days and the whole thing. Near-death experience. It was quite something.
Yeah.
And and then literally, in my opinion, by the grace of God, I walked out of that hospital. They did not expect me to. In fact, on day like 4, when I started having stroke symptoms and hallucinations, and I was on oxygen because the left lung had filled up completely with fluid. The right lung was only 25% clear for oxygen. And I felt like I was dying. I mean, it was just crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And anyway, had that near-death experience, vision, the whole thing. I didn't see Jesus. I didn't see angels. It wasn't that. And I've posted more about that on my blog if people want to see details. But it was very life-changing. And I felt I was given a choice. You want to stay or you want to go? And I chose to stay. But anyway, the post that, everything they'd been doing, nothing was working. They couldn't get this 104 fever to it would come up and down and up and down. And that'd been going on now for 5 days or 6 days. And I'll never forget my oncologist was off that day or something. And the one who was head of the department, because it's a teaching hospital, came in. My family was all gathered around and I was in clearly critical condition. And she said, guys, we need to be realistic. She's a stage 4 cancer patient. I'm like, and I'm still conscious. I'm thinking, is this happening? Yeah. I mean, yes, I feel like crap. And yes, all this stuff is happening, but is this really happening to me?
Yeah.
Anyway, and then the next day it all turned around. It just, things stabilized and, so the power of prayer, whatever. And then I can't tell you, but it turned around and within 3 days I walked out of that hospital.
I remember texting with your sister.
Yeah.
And I just, honestly, every time my phone went off, I thought, oh, please God, please God, please.
Yeah, there was a time where I wasn't able to communicate. I mean, I could. At one point, I lost my ability to speak. I could hear stuff, and they said it was stroke-like stuff after the fact, but I could hear sounds way elsewhere in the building. I was seeing hallucinations of literally like a circus animals walking across my room. It was just crazy stuff. And and there was a point all I could do was write to communicate. I lost all my bodily function, bowels. I couldn't control anything. It was bad.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a miracle. And, I think after that happened and I recovered, I had to kind of learn to walk again. I mean, I could do it, but my mobility was all over the place, and got home, waited another 5 weeks till I was more stable. And the doctor said, do you want to continue with the regimen? And we really had to think, because they couldn't guarantee. So we thought about it, we prayed about it. And then I said, yeah, I do. I want to continue. And of course, as many of us have gone through chemo and immunotherapy, the first dose is the highest, and then they drop it down. Usually, not every time, but with that lower dose, my body tolerated it, even though it was still, I lost my hair and the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that continued on for 4.5 months. And at the end of that, interestingly enough, within 3 weeks after that first dose, my right breast was clear of cancer. They did the tumors were gone. They did 3 biopsies because they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And then by the end of those, would have been like 4 months, the tumors in my lungs were gone. They said, we don't know. We know this medicine's good. And yes, of course, to God be the glory, but we've never seen this happen.
Yeah.
Never. So I'll never forget the radiologist who became a friend, honestly, over time, because I was in for so many PET scans and MRIs and on a constant basis. With the clinical trial, I had to be reviewed every few weeks.
Yeah.
And he became a friend, and he chased my husband down at one point after that hospital experience. And I was then back in treatment, and he said, "You just don't understand. This just doesn't happen."
Yeah.
He said, "It doesn't happen." So anyway, and then to have the oncologist finally say it, 2 years later, is like, well, yeah.
That is, you're here for a purpose. There's something more you need to do.
Yeah.
So.
And I do believe that. And I believe too that on one hand, it's very powerful to know, to keep going back. Sometimes when I get into a depression, or when I get into a low point, or now that I've lost both my breast, and I did not do reconstruction for a number of reasons, which is a different topic, but so I'm flat and I wear a prosthesis. And that has been a huge piece of grief, losing my breasts.
Yeah.
And just traversing now the impacts on my body. I've had a right shoulder that I've been in physical therapy for months and still is not right. And now we're almost 9 months past, the surgery, almost 10. And it's just been really hard. Mm-hmm. And so I have to often go back to, for me, like, okay, I made it out of that.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when I was in the throes of that. I wasn't a woman of prayer before. I'll be honest and say that I was not a person of faith before. Mm-hmm. This brought me back to it. I would pray and say, if you can just, I remember laying on the couch just feeling like complete crap. If I can just have my health back and a normal day. Mm-hmm. And guess what? I have both of those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes, like you and I said at the beginning, when you're so driven and type A and you've had a big corporate life and it's success, and then all that gets thrown away, and then you get back what you didn't think you'd have, in my case, health, and happily my family, and a normal day. My normal psychology often is, as an overachiever, is to be like, well, now what else? Well, now what else should I be doing? What else should I be achieving? What else should vision? And I have to sometimes sit back and go, JuliAnne, take a breath.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've been through a lot. There are ways you're giving back, and that may be all there is.
Yeah. And I don't think it's all there is. I think that maybe is your purpose. That's why you're still here. So it's, that's huge. That's absolutely huge.
Yeah. And it's different. I want to be clear to say it's different. And you're great at saying this all the time, Michelle. It's different for every single woman that goes through breast cancer. Their journey is different, whether or not you go through chemo, or whether or not you do radiation or a mastectomy, single or double or not. Everybody has their own experience, and they all are chaotic in ways emotionally, and the recovery is different and yet the same. Mm-hmm. And so all of it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Oh yeah. It's every woman's journey is absolutely her own. It's a personal journey that only they understand and only they can go through. Right. And the purpose of what you and I do, and many other people that are giving back in different ways, is just to let women know that that's okay. That's absolutely normal. You can ask questions. You're not going to experience things the same way.
Right.
Like when your doctor tells you, you may feel this way or that way. But you could feel something totally different. I at first, when I didn't they would say, okay, this is probably going to burn going in, or this is going to happen. And I wouldn't feel that. I'd be like, okay, well, what's wrong with me?
Right.
Why am I not feeling it when everybody else did? Well, not everyone feels, the same way or experiences pain or sensation or what have you the same way. And I think that the conversation needs to be had that, this is what we've seen. Some people experience this and some people don't,
right?
Or whatever. I think that maybe the conversations that doctors have, they need to let women know that this is what we've seen in the past. It's not necessarily what you're going to experience, but here's some information that you can have. So I that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how we can approach the conversation a little better so that women know that it's okay if they don't feel something the way they're supposed to feel it.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a good job of that, to be honest. Yeah. And I think, there's two sides of it. Our Western medical system right now is stretched to the max. And oncologists, I think my average appointment, mine was probably different because being in a trial, I got a lot more attention. The minute I was off the trial, I was kind of back in the norm.
Yeah.
And I would only see my oncologist for 15 minutes every 3 months, not including PET scans and MRIs and all that. And that can be disorienting to a woman who's had a lot of attention, and then suddenly you're kind of back in the realm, if you back in the line, rank and file. And so there's so many things doctors have to communicate by law and to cover themselves and et cetera. And they're not perfect people. There's people like us. So I always try to give all of them the benefit of a doubt of how stretched they are. And sometimes we think, well, why didn't they tell me this? Or why didn't they explain? My experience would be different. And the reality is they're just people. Yeah. And so that's why I think these conversations, like what you're putting out there to the world, are so important, because my story looks different, yours looks different. And then let's be honest, there are some women and men that have had cancer and gone through it and have lived and gone on, that they don't want to ever talk about it. Yeah. They want to go back to their regular life. They don't care about serving anyone. They just want to enjoy their life. And I don't blame them. Good for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What you and I are doing, it's not for everybody.
No.
And like I said, I can't even tell you how many people will watch this that I'll never ever know that they did. But if there's some way, some little nugget they can take from what we talked about today, then I'm doing something good,
Yeah.
And that's just who I am, and who you are as well. We're nurturers. We care. We want to give back. We want to say thank you for still being here. My thing is I'm upright breathing with a pulse. So
yeah. And I've always liked your little hashtags, like every day is a gift. I think I adopted that one from you. Yeah. And my life is a gift. And it's true. It really is.
And it's, and I did the hashtag my scars, my story. I think every woman should use that, because every woman has her own personal, amazing story. And they may not think it is, but it is, because they survived. Yeah. They survived. And you know what? If they go back to their everyday life and that makes them happy, to me, they're a warrior. They're an absolute warrior doing that.
Absolutely. Agree.
So, yeah. Well, I am so thankful to you for being my first conversation with friends.
I didn't know I was the first. I feel even more special. Thank you.
Well, I interviewed this amazing woman, Sandy Priester from LifeSpark, and it was a different sort of concept. It was more of an interview process, but I really wanted it to be a conversation with friends. I wanted it to be, relaxing, open, honest, and just, let women know this is what we're going to be doing going forward. So,
love it. Well, kudos to you, Michelle. I think your heart and your passion for really supporting others that go through this journey is amazing. And I know that you're already helping so many through the group and through the business page of the Boob Report. And I just laud you, because it, as I said, as we discussed, many people just want to go on and to forget, but you're using the pain and the suffering and the emotional roller coasters that you went through to really help other people. And it's just very exciting.
Well, I appreciate it, my friend. I appreciate your love and support. And, I'm always here for you. And do me a favor, once we sort of end the live, go into the comment section and put the website for the Unbridled Woman and,
Sure.
and the information for that, because I think a lot of people would really, really benefit from checking that out.
Yeah, I will. And let me just note something about that quickly. My style of writing is very forthright. And the bulk of those, while there is the complete story from beginning of chemo through my near-death experience and then coming out of that, it's important to note that it's very real. It's not pink washed and made to look pretty. It's very real. So some people may not be able to stomach that, but many have told me that it's helpful because it is so authentic. So
yeah.
I know.
Well, and that, I appreciate you saying that up front, because for some people that may be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But others, they need that.
Yeah.
They need it. They need it. So yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with you.
Of course, my dear. I love you to pieces, and this
Love you too.
been amazing. So we are going to sign off. JuliAnne and I are going to hop back in the green room, but thank you guys so much. And this is on the business page, and we will have more come with conversations with friends coming up soon. Thanks, guys.